Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Well, it's the end of November, it's 7:45 in the evening, and so it's cold and dark outside here in the UK, but I'm warm and cosy here in my craft room. I'm sitting here in my PJs and my fluffy socks, and I feel like doing a bit of crochet, so I thought let's carry on with the knot a paper chain and move on to learn another stitch. So I've been giving this some thought, and although my plan had been to try to sort of show a few different stitches, I've decided that because the little rows in these chains are so short, they're only 5 stitches for each row, it doesn't really give us enough scope for many fancy stitches. So what I'm going to do is for this project just show the really basic stitches that you need, and if you can master those basic stitches you can do anything in crochet really. You know, you need to be able to kind of count and follow a pattern, but we'll learn all that as we go along. We'll do that together. So what I'm going to do this evening is go over the foundation chain again and the double crochet, and then I'm going to show you treble. I think we'll go to treble first and then we'll do half treble next time. Now I'm talking in UK terms, and it's different in the States, so I'll talk about that as we go along, and I'll start to show you how these stitches would appear if you were following a pattern as well. So if you're a beginner, this will give you lots of practice at those 3 basic stitches, and keeping your edges straight, keeping your tension uniform, learning how to weave all your ends in and things, and just learning how those stitches would appear in a pattern is all useful for later on. So I will be mostly talking in UK terms, but I will tell you as we go along what the equivalent would be in American terms, American crochet terms. For some reason we only talk about American and English crochet terms. I mean, lots of other people all over the world do crochet, so I don't know which ones they follow, but generally what you'll see is people will talk American or UK terms, and you do need to know, if you come to following a pattern, you do need to know which is which. It will usually say somewhere in the pattern, or you'll be able to work it out by the context once you know what you're doing. So I'm going to start by showing you the foundation chain and the double crochet again, because I always start with a row of double crochet. There is a different way of starting, but we'll come to that a bit further down the line. But before we get started, I just wanted to quickly show you this. How cute is that? So this not toilet bag, it's going to be a crochet needle bag actually. It was made for me by a friend at work, and that's beautiful. And then on here is a cute little crocheted bee. This is made by my friend Emily Arts here on YouTube. She's called Little E Illustrations on Etsy, and you can buy things like this in her Etsy shop, and some cute stickers and other things as well, some of her gorgeous illustrations. I'll try and remember to leave a link to Emily in the description box. So let's get started. So start off as always with a slip knot. So this is how I do it. I make a loop. I make a loop like that. It's very hard to do this at arm's length holding it out onto the camera, you know. Make a loop like that and pull a loop through and close it up like that. That's how I do it, however you want to do a slip knot. So you end up with sort of hangman's noose, I always call it, and pull that up a bit closer to your hook, but don't pull it too tight. You want this first row to be deliberately quite loose, because the first row can tend to get very tight. That's an ending row. Yeah, you can see there that first row tends to be a bit tighter than the others, and especially when you're starting off you can end up with really tight row, and then it just sort of, it all tenses up there and gets looser up here, and it doesn't look very good. So there is another way that you can do a chainless foundation, where you're working I don't know how to show you. You're working that first row of chain and the first row of double crochet all at the same time, and it gives you more of an elastic start, but we'll learn that a bit later down the line. Let's keep it straightforward at the moment. Okay, so I've got my slip stitch, my slip knot on my hook, and now I want to make 6 chain. I'm going to have 5 stitches in each of these rows, but I need an extra chain as my turning chain. So if this was written in a pattern, the way they would write chain is just CH, and we're going to have 6 chains, so it'll be written like that. Sometime, and that will be the same in America or England. Sometimes patterns are written as diagrams, and in that case you'll see a chain represented with something like that. It might go horizontally, it might be going, depending on how the pattern's laid out. That'll make more sense to you later on. So I'm doing 6 chain. So you don't count the one that's on the hook. So to make your chain, I hold my hook like this. Some people will hold it like a pencil, but this is how I hold it, and I just hold it, keep a little bit of tension here, but not too much. If you find that your work's getting really too tight, just think about not pulling. You don't want to be pulling this tight. You just want enough tension to keep it straight but not taut. You know, if your work's getting too tight, just experiment with, you know, sometimes people have it wound around loads of fingers and stuff like that, and it all just gets a bit too tight. So just, that's probably one of the areas where you might be able to improve things if your tension's too tight. Okay, so I've got it like this, and I want to put the yarn around the hook. So I do it by, I sort of lift this up and put the hook around at the same time. So just to get the yarn around the hook like that. So I'm just sort of going like this. Yep, like that. And then I'm pulling that yarn through that slip stitch that we made, slip knot. And that's my first chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you need to get used to counting the number of stitches that you've got as well. Not so crucial with something as small as this, but it's worth learning how to do it now. So don't count the one that's on the hook, and then you can see, let's have my pointy stick. So not counted the one on the hook. Oh, this is awkward. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chain. Now my first row is going to be a double crochet, or that's a single crochet in the States. So this would be written DC for double crochet in the UK, and I'm going to be doing 5 double crochet. So that's UK. 5 single crochet in the US. And if this was a diagram, it would be written like this. It would be shown, represented like this. So the reason I needed 6 chain is that extra chain is my turning chain, and that's the little chain that's gonna, at the moment they're all lying that way, that last little chain is going to stand up like a little soldier next to all the other stitches in the next row we're going to do. So they all stand up straight in the same direction, you'll see. I'm waffling now. Okay, so to do the double crochet, hang on, yeah, I'm not going to go in here. Oops, I'm not going to go in here. I'm going to go in here. Put my hook in, yarn around the hook, pull it through that first stitch that we're going into, yarn around the hook again, and pull it through both loops on the hook, and that's our first UK double crochet, single crochet in the States. So that's 1. So let's do another one. So let's hold it, see if I can hold it so I can show you. So that's where I've already just gone in, that's where I've already made a double crochet in the chain of the previous row. next one I'm going into is this one. Okay. That's the second double crochet. Now going into the next one. Yarn around hook, pull it through, yarn around the hook again, pull it through both loops on the hook. So that's 3 double crochet. I've got 2 more to go. And here's the last chain on the hook, last chain on the previous row, sorry. Oops, put my hook in, pull the yarn through, yarn around the hook, pull it through both loops. So now I've got, don't count the stitch, don't count the loop on the hook as a stitch. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. There you go. These first couple of rows can be a bit tricky. Here we go. That's better. So there is my little turning chain. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So now I'm going into, actually let's just show you another row of double just to recap. So I need 1 turning chain again. So before I turn the work, I'm going to do a chain, yarn around the hook, pull it through, then turn the work. So it's nice that with crochet you haven't got like a great long needle with loads and loads of stitches on. You've just got this one at the end of the row to deal with. So that's my turning chain. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm going to go into that first. You can see I've got 1, 2, I've not counted the one on the hook. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to go into this one. 1, 2, and if you get a bit lost as to where you need to be going, lost one there. If you get a bit lost as to where you need to be going in, just turn it over slightly so you can see where you are. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Okay, so not counting the stitch on the hook again, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as my last one. So now I'm going to start doing some treble. So for a treble we need 3 turning chains. So treble would be, we're going to do 5 treble. Treble would just be written like that. I've written treble again. Sorry. In the States, so in the States this would be written this would be double crochet. So we call it a treble in the UK, it's a double crochet in the States. Oops. And if you were looking at a diagrammatic style of pattern, it would be written like this, or represented like this. So we need 3 turning chain for this stitch, and this is to help to keep these edges nice and straight. And you'll see in a minute, in a way it makes more sense when you do a treble. I think that's when the penny dropped for me anyway. So I'm going to make 3 chain again, yarn around the hook, pull it through the loop on the hook, and again and again. So that's my 3 turning chains, and in effect that's like my first, it's going to look like my first treble stitch. So then I'll turn my work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to end up with 5, so this is my first stitch. So I'm going to go, I'm not going to go in there again, I'm going to go in here. So with a treble, instead of going in and then putting the yarn around the hook, we put the yarn around the hook first. So yarn around the hook, and then go in to, it's the second stitch along, and pull that yarn through that stitch on the previous row. So now you've got 3 loops on that hook. Yarn around the hook again and put it through the first 2 of those loops on the hook, and yarn around one more time and pull it through the last 2 loops on the hook. And that's our first treble stitch. So you can see it's almost exactly the same height as those 3 turning chains that we made. So they stand up nice and straight together like a row of soldiers. So now the next one's going to go in here. So yarn around the hook again, into there, pull the yarn through, yarn around the hook again, pull it through the first 2 loops on the hook, yarn around one more time through the last 2 loops on the hook. 3 trebles. So once you have got the hang of these, you can do all kinds of patterns if you've got a longer stretch, so you can kind of miss one of the spaces and then put 3 in the next one, and miss the next space and put 3 in the next one, and you start to get little cluster patterns. And that's how they do that filet crochet you might have seen, like a kind of lace pattern. So yeah, once you've got these, you've got everything you need. It's just a question of learning to follow the patterns then. And I find crochet is also very forgiving if you want to have a go at making up your own patterns, you know. But maybe that's a little way down the line yet if you're just beginning. So I've got 3, I want 2 more. So yarn around the hook, and this time I'm going to go in there, pull the yarn through. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Yarn around the hook, go into the next stitch, yarn around the hook again, pull it through that stitch, yarn around the hook again, pull it through the next 2 loops on the hook, yarn around one more time, pull it through the last 2 loops on the hook. So basically you're doing it 3 times, and I think that's why in the UK we call this a treble. We're right, they're wrong. We're right, the rest of the world is wrong. I think Emily, who I just showed you, who made the bee, she said she follows US terms, not UK, although she's English. So right, so one last time. So basically you're putting the yarn around the hook and you're going, I always count it in my head, 1, 2, 3. So there we go, that's our first row. So we've got 5 trebles, all standing up nice and straight. So you can see that if you didn't have that turning chain, it just wouldn't work, would it? It would go all squashed at the side. It just wouldn't stand up nicely. So let's do another row of those. So we want a turning chain again. So we've got 1, 2, 3 chain, turn the work, yarn around the hook. So I'm not going to go into this one this time because I've already got, this is in effect my first stitch. I'm going to go into the next 4 though. So here, sometimes at the end of this row I get a bit confused. So if you do, just turn it slightly like this so you can see those lined up V's. I always find that helps. So that's the one we've already got we've already got our turning chain there for that one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, we want 4. So let's get my pointy stick so I can show you. So this has gone a bit wonky because it's at the end of the row, but there, if I would just wiggle that a bit, you can see. Yeah. So you've now got, you can see that those all line up, and actually last stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We've already got that one. And you'll find that in crochet patterns, at the end of each row, especially when you're decreasing and increasing and things, there'll be a little number in brackets, and what that number is how many stitches you should have in your row at the end of it. So that's always a hand. You can always check that you're not going too far astray. But again, we'll come to that one step at a time. We'll come to that later. So yarn around the hook again into that second, I'm going into the second one because this is my first stitch in effect. Yarn around the hook into the stitch, pull the yarn through the stitch, yarn around the hook again, through the next 2 loops on the hook, yarn around the hook one more time, through the next 2 loops on the hook. And you do sometimes need to just wiggle this last, that's it, wiggle it about to get in that last little V. There we go. Okay. Another row of 5 trebles. So I mean, this is really a bit of an open pattern for these, and I'm thinking, looking at it now, I mean it's okay, it looks all right like that, but I'm thinking this is where we could maybe do a half treble instead, and it would be a closer texture, but at least it would be still something different from double crochet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you a half treble, and you can see, you can make up your own mind which one you want to do. So for a half treble, it's going to be written like this. Again, it's going to be 5, and it's written like that in the UK. And in the States, I believe it's called a half double. Now, hang on a minute, I need to check my chart. A minute. So in the States, it's called a half double crochet. And it would be shown on a diagram pattern like this. I've done a couple of rows of the double crochet to start with, so that's double crochet here and single crochet in the States. Oh, I wish it was all the same. So to do the half treble or half double crochet in the States, we need to do a 2 turning chain. So 1, 2, and that's because the half double crochet stitch is a little bit higher, a little bit deeper than the double crochet or single in the States, but a little bit shorter than the treble or double in the States. So I've did I do 2 chain? So a 2 turning chain, 1, 2, and then turn my work. So now, to make nice straight edges with the half treble, this is my turning chain, but I'm not going to count it as my first stitch. I'm going to go into this first one. So like with the treble, double in the States, I'm going to put the yarn around the hook before I go into the stitch on the previous row. So I'm going to go into that stitch, and then I'm going to pull the yarn through that first stitch. So I've got 3 loops on the hook now. and then I'm going to put the yarn around the hook again and pull it through all 3 loops of the hook, and that has formed my first half treble. Same again, yarn around the hook into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn around the hook once, just one time, and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So now I've got 2 half treble stitches. It's quite a nice little stitch, it is one of my favourites. I just like the texture of it, it's a bit more interesting looking than double, but it's not as open as treble. Yarn around the hook, into the stitch, pull a loop through, yarn around the hook just once, and put it through all 3 loops on the hook. There we go. This is my last stitch that I've got to look for. There we go. Oh, I didn't put it around the hook first. Around the hook and into that last stitch from the previous row. So there we go. So let's count, make sure we've got it right. So not counting the one on the hook, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're not counting this one as a stitch now. That was our turning chain. So do another turning chain, 1, 2. So I think there are different ways. I've seen a few different ways recently, people trying to find ways to keep the edges as straight as possible. So I find that for double, I'm talking UK now, I can't keep going, I can't keep going between the two. I'm going to talk UK now. I will put a little conversion in the description box, I think. So for doing doubles and half trebles, I tend to do it this way, where I go into that first stitch and don't count the turning chain as a stitch. But when I'm doing trebles, I count that turning chain as my first stitch. For me, that works. There are other ways, and we can kind of explore those as we go along. But so I'm going to do it for now because it works for me. So I've done my 2 turning chain, turn the work, yarn around the hook, and now I'm going into this first stitch. So again, if you get confused, turn it slightly so you've got that little row of V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going in here. I'm not going to count that turning chain, I'm just going to go into every single stitch on that previous row. Yarn around the hook, into the stitch, pull the yarn through, yarn around the hook one more time, put it through all 3 loops on the hook. And so I'm now going into this last one here. There we go. So I think you can see that keeps the edges reasonably straight. Like I said, there are different ways I've seen recently that people, I'd not seen until relatively recently, things I've watched on YouTube where people have started the rows in a different way, done the turn in a different way to get a straighter edge. But this is what I was always taught, so I'm going to stick with it for now, but we might have a look at some of those other ways further down the line. I think the bunting would be a good one to do next because it'll give me the chance to show a few different stitches, colour changes, increasing and decreasing. Another idea would be to do ankle warmers, a scarf, so many things we could do. Granny squares would be fun, crochet flowers would be fun, although we could bring them into the bunting. So yeah, all sorts of ideas, but I think this is going to be a pretty good basic one just to practice this, just keeping the edges straight, starting the piece, how to finish off, weaving your ends in, all that stuff. So you can see that's 2 rows there of the half, what we call half treble, and it just has a slightly, I don't know, I just prefer the look of it to the double crochet. It's just a bit more interesting. So I will probably do a few of these now in half treble. I think next time there are a couple of stitches I think which are just variations on treble and double, which we could try. That I think will work in these small pieces. And then I think that'll be it for this point. It'll just be a question of, well, carry on and make it as long as you like, and then after Christmas I'll start the next project, and I think it's going to be bunting because I really fancy doing that. Okay, so that's it from me. I hope all that made sense. It is quite hard to explain verbally, and I'm really sorry if it makes it more muddly, the fact that I'm trying to say UK and US terms. I think maybe next time I'll just stick with UK terms, but I'll put a conversion in the description box. It would be so much easier if we just all spoke the same language, wouldn't it, really? Anyway, I hope you found that useful, and do ask if anything doesn't make sense. Just ask me a question in the comments. I always check them, and I always answer them. But I hope you found that useful. I hope even if you're not a beginner, I hope you feel inspired to get your crochet hook out and use some of those scraps. And that's it from me for now. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye.